Hi, boys and girls. I would like for you to follow along in the Cars and Stars book, and you're actually going to be looking at cars. You're going to be looking at the Pretest Part 1, and I would like for you to read along as I read you the passage. Read this passage of historical fiction that takes place during the mid-1700s. Then answer the questions about the passage. Choose the best answer for numbers 1 through 12. So here we go. Please follow along as I read aloud the passage. A lone snowflake drifted from the slate gray sky as an icy breeze blew across the meadow, carried the smell of wood-burning fire from a distant cabin. "I haven't got much time," Lewis whispered aloud as he scanned the horizon. Lewis began to dismantle the small camp he had made along the bank of the St. Lawrence River. He knew only too well what could happen to a trapper who got caught in a sudden snowstorm, especially in this section of Canada. Lewis's grandfather nearly died on this same spot 3 years ago in 1740 during a month-long trapping excursion. A small storm turned quickly into a blizzard. If not for his loyal dogs, Lewis's grandfather would never have escaped in time. Lewis had mixed feelings about making camp in this area, thinking it was bad luck. He convinced himself that he was being foolish, but now he wasn't so sure. Lewis tugged at the poles of his tent, but they held firm in the frozen ground. Glancing again at the sky, he saw the clouds growing grayer. Lewis turned his attention to his belongings, the pelts he had accumulated over the last 2 weeks, and the hiking gear that remained by the water. He threw everything into 2 identical packs, one for pelts and the other for his gear. He bound them securely to the sled. With his father very ill, Lewis had to support his family. These pelts would bring in the money they desperately needed. Animal skins were in great demand, especially in Europe, where fur-bearing animals were scarce. "Rascal! Badger!" Lewis commanded. Almost immediately, the huskies marched out of the woods, followed by 4 other dogs of various breeds. He was careful to make his nervousness about the impending storm. If the dogs detected any fear in Lewis's voice, they would not be able to do their job. Lewis began hitching the dogs to the sled mount. As he lashed the lines, he caught a glimpse of a large figure emerging from the woods. His stomach tightened at the sight of an enormous grizzly. Lewis jumped onto the dog sled and grabbed the reins. He blew 3 brief whistles, the command for the dogs to move, as the grizzly charged towards them. Though the dogs were fast, they hadn't yet built up enough speed to outdistance the bear. Having gained on Lewis and the dogs, the bear barreled into the dog sled, knocking Lewis over and sending one of the packs flying. Distracted, the bear went after the pack. Lewis had the presence of mind to quickly regain control of the sled. "Let's move," Lewis barked, his voice wrapped in nervous energy. Sensing the urgency in their master's voice, the dogs bolted down the narrow trail, headed for home at a pace that would likely leave the bear in the storm far behind. So that is the passage, and it's a historical fiction. So now I'm going to read you the questions. And as I read the questions, I'd like for you to read along, and I'd like for you to circle the best answer, please. The first one says, finding main idea. Number 1, the best title for the passage is Attack of the Grizzly Bear, Fur Trapping in Canada, Fear in the Wild, The Fur Trade. Number 2, Which fact is supported by information in the passage? A grizzly had once threatened Lewis's grandfather years ago. B, sudden snowstorms were not unusual in the area where Lewis had been camping. Lewis and his father usually went on trapping excursions together. Lewis was unaware that one of his packs had been knocked off the sled. Number 3. The sentence below describes events that took place in the passage. Lewis packed his belongings as quickly as possible. Number 2. Lewis tried unsuccessfully to dismantle the tent. Lewis regained control of the dog sled. Lewis spotted a grizzly emerging from the woods. What is the correct order of the sentences? Is it A, 1 first, 2 second, 3 and 4? Or is it B, 2 first, then 4, then 3, then 1? Or is it C, 1 3 4 2, D, 2 1 4 3? So, understanding sequence, put them in order, please. Number 4, recognizing cause and effect. Why were animal skins in great demand in Europe? Is it A, the temperatures in Europe were significantly lower than in Canada? Is it B, animals of all kinds were uncommon in most of Europe? Is it C, fur-bearing animals were not as numerous in European countries? Is it D, the fur of animals in Canada was more desirable than the fur of animals in Europe? Number 5, comparing and contrasting. Which of these tells a way that Lewis and his grandfather were not alike? A, they both trapped animals for a living. B, they both were trapped in a sudden snowstorm. Is it C, they both relied on dogs to save them from a dangerous situation? D, they both found danger in the same area of Canada. Making predictions. Number 6. In the future, Lewis will probably A, use a more modern dog sled to move about the wilderness. B, acquire a faster and more loyal team of dogs. C, avoid trapping in the area that has brought danger twice to his family. D, abandon the trapping trade for a more profitable way of life. Number 7, finding word meaning in context. In paragraph 3, what is the best meaning of the word support? A, carry or bear the weight of. B, show to be true. C, give approval to. Provide for with funds or necessities. Number 8, drawing conclusions and making inferences. From the passage, readers can conclude that Lewis, A, traps animals as a hobby rather than as a trade. B, has a considerable lack of respect for animals. C, has not yet determined if the pack that fell off the sled contained his pelts. D, dedicates many hours each day to training his dog. Number 9, distinguishing between fact and opinion. Which of these is an opinion? Lewis's family was very ill. Lewis should have camped somewhere else. Many of the pelts that Lewis acquired would be sold in Europe. Or D, Lewis was frightened by the charging bear. Identifying author's purpose, number 10. Put your finger on number 10, please. What is the author's purpose in paragraph 3? A, to explain why the pelts were important to Lewis. B, to describe Lewis's accomplishments on his excursion. C, to explain to readers what a fur trapper endures. D, to show readers that fur trapping was once a widespread occupation. 11. Interpreting figurative language. The phrase presence of mind means A, ability, B, good sense, C, luck or good fortune, D, strength of character. 12. What is the best summary of the passage? A, fur trapping was once a profitable but dangerous way to make a living. B, a trapper struggles to escape a dangerous bear. A trapper finds danger in the Canadian wild. D, a trapper is determined to provide his family with desperately needed money. So now we're ready to do pretest part 2. Read this social studies article about an important discovery. Then answer the questions about the article. Choose the best answers for numbers 1 through 12. The title of the article is Iceman, A Bridge to the Past. Put your finger on the first paragraph, please. On September 19, 1991, 2 German hikers were climbing in the Alps of Austria when they discovered a frozen body poking through the glacial snow. What they thought was the victim of a hiking accident was actually one of the most important archaeological finds of the century, the well-preserved mummified body of a 5,300-year-old man. The Iceman's major organs and skin were remarkably preserved, as well as his leather shoes, grass cape and hat, metal axe, unfinished bow, finished and unfinished arrows, flint knife, bark quiver, and samples of various grains, berries, and mushrooms. The Iceman soon became known as Ötzi, named after the Ötztal Valley where he was found. This valley is located near the border of Austria and Italy. Scientists had many questions about Ötzi. Where had he come from? What was he doing on the mountain? During the years since Ötzi's discovery, archaeological teams have been able to use the discovery to shine a light on a period of historical darkness. The most informative tool that helped piece together the puzzle of Ötzi's life was the copper axe found beside him. The artifact assisted in determining what time period Ötzi came from. The metal used for the axe blade was from the Copper Age, which lasted from 4000 to 2200 BC. Scientists also learned that Ötzi's life by studying everything from his fingernails to hair to moss and pollen grains found on his clothing. Ötzi was probably part of a small farming community that had begun growing wheat. An analysis of the pollen and moss trapped in his clothes revealed that he was from the southern valleys. From these clues, scientists determined that Ötzi was of Italian ancestry. Scientists have come to the conclusion that Ötzi was a man going about his everyday business equipped with all he needed for daily life. Everything about him confirms that he was a mountain man. He had light weight items, warm, waterproof clothing, and even a repair kit he carried in his belt. His skeleton tells the same story. His bones were misshapen from regular, tough clothing. He had frostbite in his toes and signs of arthritis in his worn joints. Despite all of this, Otzi was a healthy man who was probably about 45 years old when he died. There are still many unanswered questions about Otzi. These questions might remain unanswered due to the mummy's fragile state. He cannot be taken out of his protective environment for long because his remains will dry out. Research has been suspended until other methods of preservation are discovered. One thing scientists are certain about, however, is that this discovery of Otzi built a bridge to the past that joined our world with his. Question 1. Finding main idea. What is the main topic of this article? A. The important discoveries of the 20th century. B. How scientists apply different research techniques to archaeological artifacts. C. How much can be learned about the past by studying an archaeological find. D. How an ancient civilization lived over 5,000 years ago. Number 2. Recalling facts and details. Which of these was the most useful in determining the region in which Otzi lived? A. A metal axe blade. B. Grains and berries. C. Leather shoes. D. Pollen and moss. Understanding sequence. The chart shows some of the information in the article. So, 2 hikers discover a frozen body in the Alps of Austria. Researchers began studying Otzi's body and artifacts found nearby. A blank. Scientists decide Otzi's body is too fragile for further research. What belongs in the empty box? So it's after the second one. Scientists ponder many questions about Otzi's life during his time. Scientists are able to make several determinations about Otzi's. Scientists assign the name Otzi to the Iceman. Research on Otzi is suspended until the protective methods of preservation are found. Number 4. The ox found with Otzi was an important artifact because it helped determine when Otzi lived, provided conclusively that metal existed over 5,000 years ago, revealed Otzi's occupation, helped scientists determine where Otzi lived. The discovery of the Iceman can best be compared to the discovery of black holes in space, vaccinations for disease, dinosaur fossils in Montana, the law of gravity. Making predictions. Number 6. Predict what will most likely occur if research of Otzi resumed in the future. A. Scientists will learn that the Copper Age was really longer than first believed. Scientists will gain additional knowledge about life during the Copper Age. Scientists will uncover more advanced theories about evolution. Scientists will learn more about the formation of the Alps. Number 7. Finding word meaning in context. The word ancestry means A. Single generation. B. Place of birth. C. Primary residence. D. Family descent. 8. Readers of this article can include that the reason Otzi's body was so well preserved was due to A. Endurance and exposure. B. Longitude and direction. C. Altitude and temperature. D. Climate and duration. Number 9. Which of these is an opinion? Otzi was discovered completely by accident. B. Otzi was a healthy man who was probably almost 45 years old when he died. Otzi's major organs were remarkably well preserved. The discovery of Otzi was the most important of all archaeological finds. Number 10. The author wrote the article mainly to A. Describe discoveries that impact daily life. B. Inform readers about significant archaeological discovery. C. Persuade others to pursue a career in archaeology. D. Entertain readers with little-known facts about the archaeological science. Number 11. The word shine a light on the time of historical darkness describes A. The way in which scientists recovered Ötzi's body so that his remains could be examined. The many questions that remain unanswered since Ötzi was discovered. How the discovery of Ötzi helped researchers learn more about the time period in which he lived. D. The process by which scientists determined that Ötzi was of Italian ancestry. Number 12. What is a good summary of the article? Archaeological discoveries are often found by people who are not scientists. B. Scientific research techniques are far from being perfected. C. The science of archaeology can reveal much about civilizations of yesterday. D. Civilization during the Copper Age was more advanced than once believed.